capturing the discussion so that you can go back to it, review it, and go from there. It's going to be recorded and accessible on Google Air, so it's kind of a new product. So let's go ahead and take a look at our agenda. I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can follow along. This is what we're going to be doing for today. We have a couple of items to go over. You can see where all the colors are. These are nothing to be afraid of. This is just where everyone has started to find the document and click on different things. So these colors are just, if you haven't used Google Docs before, these are just individual people who are looking at certain things or have just camped on the page, which is fine. So you'll see those markers all throughout the document as we go. So today I thought just for organizational purposes we would start with planning and writing. We would start with step one in the writing process, and I know that you guys went over it when I was out there and we did our live training, but a lot has happened since then. Some of us have had an opportunity to try things, some of us have not. Some of us are still trying to learn the website. So there's a lot of review today, but also some deepening of ideas. I know in a professional development setting, there's so many ideas that come at us, and then we don't really know everything. We don't remember everything, and we don't walk away understanding all parts. So we're going to talk about some of the things that will be, again, review, but then some will be new. So we're going to start with the writing and writing prompts and speaking prompts, so how to develop those. We're going to look at the prompt builder just so you can remember how powerful that tool is. We're going to talk about our prompts, the ones that we write, and get a sampling from you today. And then we're going to look at the process of analyzing prompts and how important that is, the reading and writing purpose as defined by Literacy TA, go over expectations for writing and share a cool exercise that you can use with your kids to break down writing prompts, talk about introducing sources and summarizing sources, and then getting into the writing plans themselves, opinion, informative, and narrative, and end on something very light about writing paper. So this is the topics that we're covering today, and I hope that for many of us that you're going to pick up a number of things that you can use tomorrow and you can start using as you plan your writing lessons going forward. So we're going to talk about writing and speaking prompts and or tasks, if you will, and talk about the importance of setting those up for our kids. When we begin any type of writing assignment for our kids, whether it be a writing assignment that requires a text or a writing assignment that is more narrative in nature, we want to give them practice in looking at writing prompts. Sometimes our writing prompts can be short and sweet, very simple. Sometimes our writing prompts need to be more elaborate, more sophisticated, challenging our students in different ways. But the key is to give them a writing prompt, because as we know, any assessment coming from your state or any assessment that they're going to face going into middle school or the state standard tests or even your own are going to have a prompt. And the more exposure we can give our kids to breaking prompts down, the stronger they'll get at doing it. It's kind of like word problems in mathematics. If we don't expose students to many word problems and we don't teach them how to break them down, they don't do them that often, but when they do them, it's going to be very difficult for them to successfully solve the problem. So with writing prompts, if we're only assigning writing, 6 or 7, 8 times a year, which is a lot for us as graders of writing, but it's really not a lot of practice for kids. So even if we're not having them write an essay or a big paper, we want to think about how can I give a prompt that I can put in front of a reading, number one, and give them a prompt that they can analyze for some sort of task, writing task or speaking task. So if you wanted them, for example, to engage in a speaking activity, instead of just telling them verbally, this is what I'd like you to do, then I'd like you to do this and that, actually write out a prompt so that the students have that practice of breaking it down and understanding it on their own. Typically, when we spend hours and hours writing our prompts, and then we give the prompt to our students, they act like they don't understand it or they kind of prolong, and then we just kind of give up and go, all right, look, guys, this is easy. This is what the prompt says. It's not very difficult. It asks you to do this, this, and this. And they go, oh, why don't you just say so? Well, in testing situations, and when they're asked to do things independently, they don't have that person saying, look, this is the simplicity of the prompt. This is what it's asking you to do. They need to figure that on their own. So I'm going to kind of open that as our first thought for step one in the writing plan. And we look at our agenda, which is over to my left. That's why I'm looking over here. When we look at our agenda, we can see that that's where we're really starting, is with the speaking and writing prompts and the prompt builder. So I'm going to share my screen with you again so that we can take a look at the prompt builder. If you guys want to follow me to the prompt builder, you can, but the main computer should stay on this Google Plus Hangout. Okay. So let's go ahead and go to the prompt builder. And I will share my screen so you guys can see that. All right, so this is the prompt builder. You guys are familiar with this. The prompt builder is going to have a number of ways to access templates. The first thing is you need to choose your grade level. Then you need to choose nonfiction or fiction. If you want a speaking task, you can click on speaking. Then you can go ahead and click on one of the SL, the speaking and listening standards. So I can say, well, I'm going to work on SL1, which is going to be a lot. That's just basically speaking collaboratively with others. So look at all these templates that you have that you can use to get kids to engage in some sort of speaking activity. So if I want students to discuss characters in a story, I can click Discuss Characters, and this prompt pops up. In a group of 4, and you might say, oh, John, I never use groups of 4. I only do pairs. That's okay. In a group of 2 or in pairs, talk about, and then whatever it is you want them to talk about. How are these 2 people, places, things? And so this is going to be, we give you options so you can make decisions about the template itself. So how are these 2, let's say, characters? Similar, da-da-da. So this is a great tool for you for speaking tasks, writing tasks, reading tasks. So let's look at writing tasks then. So here are writing standards. And if I want students to write an informative piece, I'm going to click on W2. If I want them to write an opinion piece, I'm going to click on W1. So here's my W2. So there are all these writing templates that you can use to ask students to write about something that they're reading, some informative text about, text structure. You can do this for science, you can do this for English in your English or your reading class. This can also be for your history class. Some of these don't require text, so define friendship. So if I define friendship, it says, what makes a good friend? List 3 traits of a good friend. Explain why these 3 traits are important in a friendship. So this template doesn't require you to have kids read and then write. It's just straight from their own perspective, student-centered. But there are other ones, like reading, let's see, maybe reading with pictures or interpreting visual information. This now requires them to look at a text, so interpret visual information, charts, graphs, timelines, present it in, and then explain how the information contributes to the understanding of the text. So this is all part of our reading standards, but it happens to be also in the writing standards as well. So I don't know how many of you started using this writing prompt builder, but I use it every day. I use it all the time, as often as possible, because it gives me so many ideas to get started with writing. So what I would like us to do, and this is going to be a little interactive, it's going to be a two-part. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to talk about the agenda. And on the agenda, there are a couple of links. The prompt builder, of course, many of you are finding, and then the collaborative document. So if you open up the collaborative document, you're going to find a place where you guys can record prompts that you have used. And I want to take the time to collect these prompts because I think it's good for us to see what kinds of questions we're asking our students. I don't think you've memorized them, but maybe some of you have them on your computers or in Google Docs. And what I'd like you to do is simply write the grade level that you teach. So if it's third grade, and then write the prompt where it says writing topic or prompt in this line. If you're fifth grade, or if you just want to write the topic, like I have my students, sorry, or I ask is probably a better verb. I ask my students to research popular topics. So you could just kind of write in information, or you can write out the prompt or copy and paste it from somewhere in your files. And I want us to have that conversation. So at your individual schools, I just want to get a sampling of prompts from the different grade levels. What sorts of questions are you asking? What types of questions? Are they text-based questions, text-dependent? Are they student-centered questions, like what is your favorite time of year, or describe your favorite vacation? Are they narrative in nature? It would just be a good exercise for us to get some information about the types of writing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you guys to task. I'm going to monitor this document so I'll be able to see if you're writing or not. And I'm going to, I want you to talk. It doesn't have to be a quiet activity. And then I'm going to have you guys compile here, and when I'm ready for you to break away in about, I don't know, 5 to 7 minutes, I'm going to play one of my trumpets or horns or whatever, and that's going to give you the signal to stop and focus on the discussion. So stop whatever you're doing and focus on the discussion. Again, if you don't have your prompts memorized, that's okay. Just write in there what sorts of questions you do ask. And if you use the prompt builder, go to the one you go to, copy and paste it in. Okay? So we're going to be using the document that you see on the screen. You're going to give the grade level, the prompt, and or topic. 5 to 7 minutes. Go ahead and go. I'm going to mute my mic, and then I will contact you guys in about 5 to 7 minutes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
we are not able to type in the document. It says it's a view-only document.
Okay, let me see. Hold on one second.
I'm saying it's too popular.
Okay, let's try that.
Yeah, it's working now. Thank you.
You're welcome. I get a kick out of that every time I use that. Okay, so I'm going to have you guys finish up looking at the document. That was amazing. What a collaborative effort. I don't know if you can see the other side of this, but not only do we get a really good sampling of the types of questions you guys are asking from grades 3 to 5, but now we have this terrific document that probably has close to, if I were to just quickly guess, 30 to 50 prompts that you guys can kind of poke around, take a look, and maybe steal and borrow some prompts that you like. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is review this document and then unmute your mics. Talk about what you're seeing. What are you noticing about these questions that you're asking? What are we expecting of our students? So come up with some general statements and conclusions that you can support based on the prompts that you see here. So what are some things that we can say very generically about the questions we're asking our kids and the expectations we have for them? And how this works is someone walks up, unmutes the mic. That person doesn't have to be the person who speaks, but you definitely could. The mics work pretty well, so you might be able to even speak across the room. So if you want to share, the only thing is you have to unmute the microphone.
We're asking students to use text to support their writing. Can you hear us?
I can hear.
We're using text. We're asking children to use text to support their opinions, back up the facts.
Absolutely, and a whole range of text. Other ideas?
Looks like we're writing.
Okay, other ideas?
It gives you a list of prompts that you can use for different grade levels, so that if you are teaching third and you want to challenge your higher level thinkers, you can go and find something that may be a fourth or fifth grade.
Absolutely.
I noticed that most prompts were compare and contrast.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's probably one of the first high-level cognitive exercises we engage our kids in, right, is compare and contrast, because they can start to see the similarities in things, and maybe by seeing the differences, they can start to talk about them in different ways. So that makes sense that you would start to see compare and contrast come out in these prompts. I see there's writing in math, science, there's definitely questions that are student-centered, right? Ideas that they have them write about their opinions, have them write about the things that they like or love. Persuasive writing. This is, thinking about it and also working with your K2 teachers, this would be a great document to share with them to show the difference, because most of their writing, when they did this activity, most of their prompts were student-centered. Most of their prompts were about how they felt, how the student felt about an idea, or how they believed in something, or so it was very much about them being the main resource and not a text. So it might be beneficial to get with your K2 teachers and show them this document and have them look at it to see what the expectation is just 1 year away. If I'm a second grade teacher, I'd really like to know that just in 1 year, this is the expectation. These are great documents to look at. I noticed, what about length? Can we talk about the length of these prompts? What can we say about the length of them?
Some of them are too long.
Some of them are too long, or none of them? How many?
Some. They're not too long.
They're not too long. Yeah, and I just gave the Smarter Balanced SBAC test here in California, and their prompts. Now I teach 8th grade, but their prompts were very lengthy, lots of language to sift through. It reminds me of my math classes when we had a word problem and we had to cut out a lot of the information that wasn't important to get to the problem. It felt like there was a lot for kids to go through and sift through. There was a lot of language there, and we do have templates in our prompt builder that are built like that to give them some of that same experience of going through ideas and finally reaching the question. So think about that too as you go forward. A lot of times they talk about it as being the background or the context. So some of these questions can get longer by providing background or context. I'm going to show you on my screen where this happens in our prompt builder. So up in this top area is where you would put the context. So instead of maybe saying interpret visuals, I can say there are many types of visuals in a text. Text can have charts, graphs, illustrations. So I can do something like that. Now watch when I scroll down. It becomes part of the prompt. See that? So now I can start adding a little bit of complexity and layering to my questions by providing a background or context. And like I said earlier, sometimes the questions already have been built in. So research an animal. I'm going to delete this. This one has some context, right? So I'm going to cut this. And I'm going to separate it over here. So sea turtles can live past 100 years and hold their breath for a very long time. Cheetahs can weigh 70 to 140 pounds and run 60 miles per hour. Animals are fascinating. And then I have the question. And then when you scroll down, this is how the question is broken up. So that's something we can think about for our one-liners, our one-line prompts, which are not bad, wrong, or anything. We're just kind of exploring right now and expanding our understanding. So we could make our prompts a little bit more sophisticated by adding some context, adding some background. And some of you do that. Where was the one? This one starts that way. So does this one. This one really gives a context right here. This is a very clear context or background, right? Setting up the question. And they don't all need that, and they don't all require that. But it is something different in these questions. There's so many different questions here, which I'd love to see. You guys did a great job. Think about this if you haven't done this with your students. Think about how you can use Google Docs exactly the way I just did to get your kids collaborating and building a document together in real time, in a computer lab, in a mobile lab, at home for homework. Think about how you can do what we just did with your kids to produce some sort of document. Very, very powerful. Okay, so once we have our prompts, we want our kids to analyze them, right? We want them to break those prompts down, and I'm going to take you there real quickly. I know you know this skill, but I just want to show you that it's here for all grade levels. So you've got your 2-3. This is Drake, who we call Drake the Dragon. And then we have, for 4-5, I don't know if we've settled on a name with this guy, with our frog. But here it is for 4-5. Now this is what's great. If you are a 4-5 teacher and you like the 2-3 better, you like that handout better, then use it. Use this handout. If you like the simplicity of it, if it reads better for you and your students, then you can use it. It has the same information, it's just not as detailed. Same steps. And I don't know if we went over this much in the live training, but this is what you would use once you've marked your prompt. So we would help them create an outline where they would pull information from the prompt and put it into this outline. So they would say, let's go back to the collaborative here. And let's try to get 2 verbs. I'm looking for a prompt that might offer 1 or 2, maybe 2 to 3 verbs. Okay, here we go. So back to that Greek mythology. Using this idea, write your own Greek mythology to explain one of the, oh no, that's just 2 topics. Okay, this one will work. So this is reading whatever, summarize main ideas, explain key details. I can go back to this document and have my kids write summarize, and on the right-hand side, the main ideas in the text. And then over here would be another verb could be explain the key details that are used to support the main ideas. And this is a planning document, getting ready for them to make the next steps in their writing. So we move from analyzing, which is right here, marking a prompt or task, and we move into more of a graphic organizer, taking it from a paragraph form and breaking it into something where I can list ideas underneath. And if you want to see where the middle school and high school, how they do it, it looks like this. So this would be middle school, high school. And then this is their prompt analysis. See how much more language there is on this page? A lot more language, a lot more things for them to think about. But guys, this is the first step to getting kids to be independent and write independently. There was someone on the document that wrote about test, 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 right? It gets over here. There was a test, test, test comment, and then there was an amen. Students have to be able to sit down, break prompts apart, and write independently. And this is the tool to do that. This is the tool. So before we even start talking about writing, they really need to master this skill. They need to master the skill of analyzing prompts. And we can grade them on it. We can assess them. We can track their progress. So this would be a rubric that you can use to grade how well they are analyzing the prompt. If you guys want to see a video on that, I don't know if we showed you, but if you wanted to see a video in the middle high, there's a video on how to go through the steps. It's probably not elementary appropriate because it's not, it feels a little scary just because it's, you know, just the hand and the text, and there's not a lot of kind of interactive elements to it. But for you, the teachers, you could look at this video and really get a good sense of what we're trying to do with prompt analysis and how to help your kids through it. Third grade teachers, this is the beginning of their experience reading deeply. They're starting to really get into independent reading and being held accountable for making meaning on their own. This is a great tool to get them started with that, to get them introduced to marking the text and to get them introduced to locating important information in a prompt and breaking it apart. So that's where I really urge us to begin our work. And then we can follow the processes, the reading and writing processes, which we talked about when we were there. So we've got the reading process. So here it is for 2-3. And then we have a reading process for 4-5. Now, since I was with you, there's already been improvements. We have, for example, added more reading purposes. So I'm a 2-3 teacher. I see my list of get started. This would be from start to finish. Analyze prompts, predict the main idea, asking questions, marking a text, and then 6 organizers at a glance, however you want them to organize their writing or their reading. Up here, when I click on the drop-down arrow, there are different reading purposes that follow the same process. So if I want my students to read and predict, I want them to learn how to stop and make predictions, I click on this one and the skills refresh. Now look at predict the main idea, pausing and predicting, and making inferences from the information in the text. So these 3 activities are all about helping kids make predictions while reading. Read for structure, analyzing text features, asking questions, having them write beginning, middle, and end. So these all have to do with reading for structure. And for 4-5 teachers, we have the same but even more options. Read argument. Let's say you have a really talkative, wild, late afternoon class. These are all reading collaboratively. So every one of these activities are done in pairs and partners and small groups. If you want your students reading argument, these change out, marking a text and then identifying evidence. And then there's an argument map. These give you ready to go reading processes that follows this main 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it gives you different ways of, or different activities to do within each step. So this is a new upgrade for this page that I'm really excited about. So I'm going to stop for a minute and have you guys have a discussion at your sites about things I've talked about: prompt analysis, looking at the reading process, looking at the different types of purposes for reading. You can share if you're excited, you can share if you want to try something, you can share if you have tried things. All is okay. Give you 5, that was 10, give you 5 minutes and just have a conversation about the things I've talked about so you can process them and or share things that you've tried or done with Literacy TA resources. And then I'm going to go ahead and call your attention about 5 minutes. Go ahead and have a conversation. That one's not as fun. Okay, so ideas from the group, things that you saw, things that you liked. I know that it seems like we spend quite a bit of time talking about reading when we need to be talking about writing, but that's the whole point, is that the reading, when the reading is done well, the writing comes with it. When you skip through the reading and the explicit instruction and you just go to the writing, it often is not done well, and it's a little bit of a challenge getting to understand if kids even wrote it correctly or understood it, what they read. So the reading process is really important. What are some things that you guys saw, came up with, discussed when you were in your groups? You can unmute your mics and share. If you're in the way far back, you might want to come forward a little bit so that we can hear you a little easier. It's called wait time, but on the digital space.
One of our discussions that came up was about time and having enough time to go through all of these awesome resources, but also time to get writing instruction in and modeling what we're supposed to do with it. Because right now we're just so jam-packed trying to add one more thing in, although they need it. What do we bump out or what do we cut back?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Balance is always the key to teaching, figuring out what kids need most, where we can add things in. That's why I was suggesting that prompt analysis that doesn't end with an essay every time. No matter what my kids are reading, every time they read, it starts with a prompt. So in their notes, they have the title, the author, the prompt broken down, and then the reading writing plan, that little outline I showed you guys. Every single time we read a new text, whether it be a chapter in a novel or a short fiction, because I want them to practice prompt analysis. And that doesn't mean we're going to write an essay every time. We don't have time. I don't have time. I don't want to grade 35 essays in a year. But it gives them that practice, right? It gives them that explicit practice of analyzing the prompt. And then I go into some anticipation guide, and I go into some vocabulary, and I'm off and running. But that balance is really, really difficult. And I used to blow through readings very quickly. I know I teach a different grade level than all of you, but when I started slowing down and spending more time on a text, it made me feel better. I didn't feel as frantic. And think, because you guys teach multiple subjects, you don't have to do everything in every subject. You can do some things in some subjects and other things with other ones. So don't feel like every time you pick up a science text, you've got to go through the 5, and every time you pick up an English text, you've got to go through the 5. As long as they're getting the process at some time in their reading instruction, then you're doing a great job for them. Just figure out when it works and what types of reading you want to do with your kids and when it's most appropriate to walk them through the entire process. Same with writing. The writing process takes an extremely long time, and sometimes you just want them to write, and that's okay. But if we never get to the process and they don't get it enough, then they're not getting the skills that we really know that they need. So it is a balance, and if there is no great formula, the only thing I can tell you is doing more with less is always going to be a winning strategy. Other insights or thoughts? Okay, so there's a couple more pieces on the agenda. I do want to take a few more minutes, but I want to honor your time as well. We did start a few minutes late, but many of you were here on time. What I want to, since there's links, you guys can kind of explore this, and if you look at the document, that's probably what you're doing now. So there's a couple of things I want you to explore, and when we're done today. Number 6 on the agenda was created by the team of teachers and coaches that helped with last summer's writing program and the writing training that you guys received a month, 2 months ago. That is a handout that I made you only so that it's not manipulated, but you can take that concept and create your own handout to help kids break down the rubrics. What we want is for your students to take ownership of rubrics. I can't tell you how shocked I was when I asked my own students to interpret my rubric and they couldn't do it. And for years, for 10 years, I've been giving kids rubrics thinking they understood them or not even thinking that that's important. And when I realized that my students had no idea what the rubric meant, I realized I needed to actually teach them how to read the rubric. Because they were getting feedback from me but had no idea what that feedback meant or how that applied to their reading and writing. And I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed to learn that my kids had no clue how I was grading them. So we developed for number 6, an activity that helps kids break down rubrics, so that's interesting. Number 7, you could just kind of look at those on your own. It's skills for introducing sources, just single line templates to help them introduce sources, and then summarizing the sources, a more complete response where they would write a summary of like a kid article or something, a kid appropriate article that about any topic, it doesn't matter. Or if you read something about in science and you wanted them to summarize something about the weather cycle or whatever, water cycle, you can have them use this activity for summary. And the point of having this in the agenda is showing you how to do this in baby steps, how to model writing in small chunks and get them writing well at certain things, not just essay, 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 big paper, 2-page writing. Get them to write small pieces. Give yourself a break and grade a sentence or two, not 2 paragraphs. Allow yourself to have some breathing room to assess a single move in writing, like a topic sentence or 2 details to a topic sentence, instead of having them do the whole thing. So think about how you can space things out a little bit, give yourself a little bit more breathing room so you can get some of these other things you want to get done, accomplished. And then the writing plans. So I think we went over this. I just want to make sure that you guys know where these resources are. So in conclusion, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just going to walk you through very quickly the Writing Center. So in our skill library, if you go to the Writing Center and you click on your grade level band, you will see resources much like you do in reading. We start with analyzing a prompt. We have our plans, editing marks, and then peer review. We're going to talk about editing marks and peer review next time we meet. So this time I just want to focus on the above. So when you ask your students to write an opinion piece, you can click on the opinion writing plan, and this resource has a number of tools that you can use. The writing plan itself, and we put in some transition words to help your kids link ideas, and they change. So reason 2, for instance, reason 3. So this is your writing plan for opinion. There's the rubric that we wrote in kid-friendly language, but I still think they need to learn how to break it down. These have been very popular on Teachers Pay Teachers. Then there's the actual writing paper. And for some of you, this is for 2-3 band. For some of you, you don't like the guides. But for some of you, you're teaching cursive. And you definitely need the guides as you go down that road with your kids. But if you're not, or they're already proficient at cursive, you can use kind of more like note paper. And the difference between this and just using regular note paper, quite simply, is it's cute. It works well for posting on your walls. It gives them very clear spaces to draw out their ideas before they start writing, and it gives them a little bit of language support for when they're transitioning from one idea to the next. And then if you go to the 4-5, you're going to find similar resources. The writing paper is much tighter. The lines are a little bit more narrow. And the plan is just, it's all compressed. It's a little bit, comes a little bit faster. It's compressed. It looks more like a paragraph when it's all done. So think about how you could use things like this to plan out a part of an essay, but only do part of it, maybe not the whole piece. And I'm talking about for science, I'm talking about English, I'm talking about your history lessons. Whenever you're having your kids write, think about how you can break these things in pieces. Maybe even have them do a plan and that's it. Not write, just learn how to plan. Learn how to write out your reasons for your main idea and practice using transitional words that you've taught them. And that's it. And grade their plan instead of grading their entire paper. And I know that might seem odd to some of you, but I'll tell you what, it's a lifesaver for teachers. It's not cutting corners, it's just teaching skills very explicitly, slowing down the process and teaching one piece at a time and assessing that piece instead of having them plan, write, revise, turn it in a big packet. Well, if they don't know how to plan, then everything that followed that probably didn't work out. If they didn't know how to read your prompt, from that beginning, all of that probably didn't work out. So think about how those parts of the process all need to be taught, and I know you know this, but maybe they need to be, maybe you can take a break a little bit and assess one at a time and practice one at a time and maybe not go to that next step until you feel like they're there. I know you guys have your state exams. I know that some of you have class exams that require the writing, and then there's diagnostic tests and benchmarking that you guys do. All of that is fine, and all of that you guys need to prepare your kids for. But there's a lot of little steps in all of those tests that kids have to know. And when we say we're going to write today, that comes with a lot of expectation and a lot of skill knowledge that they may or may not have. All the way back to the reading. From the prompt to the reading to doing something with that reading to the planning of that writing to the writing. And I know I'm probably describing some of your frustrations, but if we could slow down and give ourselves a little license, the college and career readiness standards are definitely allowing us to slow down, even though in our minds we might be thinking it's so much more. They're allowing us to slow down and teach those skills and figure out ways to teach them in your different contents or your different subjects so that you're not feeling like every time I pick up a story it has to be this long process. Maybe it's a paragraph in science. Maybe it's a one-pager in your history unit. Maybe it is an article online that you found. But somewhere in your curriculum, take them through this process. It's important. It is hard. I know it's difficult to find the space, but you guys have always been troopers as long as I've known you. You've always been teachers who care and love kids deeply and work to the bone until you get it right. So that's just, you love teaching, and that's why I love being a part of this team, because you guys love teaching and you bring it every day. So this is just part of it, and I want to be able to help you guys, give you resources you can use, give you something practical, and I hope that today there was something I mentioned or a strategy, whether it be from the technology end to the writing process and reading process to the prompt builder, that there's something that you guys can say, I'm using that. I can use it. It's going to work perfectly. Here we go. Okay, so I told you I was going to take a little of your extra time, and I have. So we were going to end at 4:30 your time, so about 10 minutes past. Thank you guys for your time. Again, this is recorded, so if you want to go back to it, go back to the agenda, click on the recorded broadcast, and then you can watch the whole thing, fast forward, rewind, do whatever you need to do. Thank you guys for your time today. Appreciate all the hard work that you put into learning this new material and all the commitment that you have for your kids. So thank you guys very much, and I look forward to our next meeting. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.